Electric vehicles, one of the fastest growing trends in the world and an essential component of the electric vehicle ecosystem, is graphite, and that is what Blencowe Resources has at its Orom-Cross graphite project in Uganda, and in significant quantities. The chief executive is Mike Ralston, and he joins us now to talk about the graphite market and how the company is positioning itself. So Mike, I mentioned electric vehicles there. How is graphite used in this sector, and what type of graphite is used?
Hi, Sarah, and it's great to be chatting with you as always. Graphite is an essential input into the anode, and the anode and the cathode are the two parts of the lithium-ion battery that drive it. It's essentially the charge that runs between the two of them that drives all the energy that powers an electric vehicle. So without graphite, you don't have a lithium-ion battery. Without that battery, you don't have anything to power EVs. And I might add that whilst the EV market is growing fast, the lithium-ion batteries to store renewable energy is growing even faster. So people who are putting all these panels on their roof to capture solar power, and obviously that sits in a lithium-ion battery in their garage. I know I've got them downstairs, and that pays for pretty much most of my electricity on a day-to-day basis. It's exactly the same type of battery. And as I say, it's graphite that's used within it. What type of graphite? It does vary a little bit, but typically you're talking about 60 to 70% is synthetic graphite, and 30 to 40% is natural flake graphite, which is what we've got at Orom-Cross. And the reason there's more synthetic is that because it's artificially produced, it has qualities that make it better for the battery in terms of discharge, in terms of how it has a relative flow of energy within that anode. So in certain circumstances, and again I refer to our particular project, there is natural flake graphite that does have the quality of end product that matches synthetic graphite and therefore can replace it. Why would we want to replace it? Well, synthetic graphite is a byproduct of petroleum coke markets, and therefore it's less environmentally friendly, and in some cases I guess a little bit more costly as well. So it's a combination of natural flake and synthetic that goes into that battery, but as I say, an essential part of the lithium-ion battery, which in itself is an essential part of the energy transition that we're underway.
Okay, but you're not in production yet. That hopefully is coming in the next couple of years. But who is supplying, and what is the supply-demand ratio looking like in the market as it stands now?
So the Chinese are completely dominating the graphite market, like they do for most of the critical minerals. And that creates a lot of geopolitical tensions. Obviously, the Western markets are very concerned that at the drop of a hat, China can literally turn off the tap on graphite, be it concentrates or purified. And that creates a lot of problems, not just in order to produce these batteries, but in order to do a whole lot of other applications as well, some of them relating to defense, energy, and some of the key areas where graphite is used. The Chinese market has grown up over many years, where the rest of the world has allowed them to take control. And the Chinese market does it in a different way. They're more interested in producing a product that they need rather than mines that are there to make a commercial profit. So my peer starting up a mine in China is given an allocation of capital from the government, and they're told to go and start a mine. And at the end of the day, they get on with it and they produce a product. They're not necessarily worried about how they fund. They're not necessarily worried about how they're going to make profits. So they can create a situation where the pricing is kept low, and they do that for a reason, because they want to keep all the Western mining graphite mines out of contention so that they can't come in and compete. So we've got this situation now where about 75 to 80% of all graphite concentrate comes from China or from Chinese-controlled mines around the world, and about 98% of all the purified graphite. And that's a tricky situation for the Western world because, as I said earlier, it creates this potential for China turning off the taps, and there's some big issues for the Western world to deal with. So the market is shifting in that sense that people are realizing that, and that dynamic needs to change. but it's going to take a big effort to be able to move away from this huge reliance upon China, and obviously it requires mines like Orom-Cross getting up to be able to do that.
So what can your mine deliver that differentiates it from the peers you've just referenced and gives it a greater chance of success?
Well, every project is different. So I think if you consider gold or you consider copper or any of the other base metals, you don't really know where a bit of copper wire comes from, whether it comes from Australia or Chile or Africa. It's all ubiquitous. But in the case of graphite, each project has a very different chemical characteristic and signature. And that's all comes down to the energy content and other characteristics of what sits in the ground in your particular project. So there's a huge amount of metallurgical testing that has to go into it. And there's a pre-qualification process where one has to really show the off-takers in bulk what we can deliver as concentrate and what we can deliver thereafter as purified graphite. And they want to understand that that fits into their requirement. To put it in context, everybody knows, I guess, in the battery market, a Duracell is a high-quality alkaline battery, and then you get some of these cheaper Chinese equivalents. You pay more for a Duracell because you know that it's going to last longer in your TV remote. And that's because it's got better quality products that go into it. So the same is true of an EV battery and other ones as well. So realistically speaking, the better products or the better quality products that come out of a higher quality mine will get more off-takers, and they will be able to command better prices for that product. We're very lucky at Orom-Cross that we do have some of the highest quality graphite in the world as both concentrate and end product purified. And that gives us a huge advantage in terms of what we can do as finding off-takers and securing the better prices, particularly from the Western markets, in order to sell it. That alone is a huge advantage. There are many others, but that alone is probably one of the key advantages that gives us a very good chance of success going forward.
Okay, but the way you talk about China, it's like them and us. You can't fully eradicate China from the supply and demand chain. So how are relationships between Orom-Cross and potential Chinese off-takers? Would you consider off-takers from Asia?
Yeah, we've got a plan or a strategy to ultimately ramp up Orom-Cross as fast as we can to sell as much, because once you get the bigger numbers, the bigger volumes being produced and sold, your unit costs come down considerably and the profitability goes up. So ultimately, we want to sell as much as we can. And, China will represent some of those sales as we go into large scale. However, we're prioritizing sales into the Western markets initially and certainly as we build the scale because, they pay better. At the end of the day, the Chinese don't pay as well. And it's very much a commercial situation more than anything else. We don't necessarily have a particular issue about who we sell to, but at the end of the day, there's a batting order, and those parties that are easier to deal with and can pay better will obviously get to the top of that batting order for us. But there are a lot of different products into different sectors. Not all graphite that we sell is the same. We'll be probably selling 10, 15 different products that all sell for different prices into different markets. So some of those will go into Chinese markets ultimately. And whether they go directly through us or via a trader, I don't know, but we certainly wouldn't rule it out. Having said that, if some of the funding comes through from Western markets, and in particular the United States, they are very particular about selling into China. So that might be one reason why we don't sell into Chinese markets. And as I say, we're focusing very heavily on prioritizing Western markets as our first in order to make sure that we get the best deal possible.
Okay, but you're still not in production yet. So what are the timelines for this to occur?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's what everybody wants to know. Me too. It's really a question of when we get funded. Our P1 production, which is our earliest stage, our first stage, will take about 12 months to build from the date of funding. And I'm hoping that I'll wrap up the funding in the next short while, in the next couple of months, and then we press the trigger and off we go, hopefully to build it and be in production by the end of 2027, before the end of the year. It's entirely dependent on funding. We're trying to build a model where we fund this initial stage as equity rather than debt. And that requires a certain type of strategic investor to come on board, those parties that really understand the market. And, we've been doing a lot of work finding those parties, getting them into the data room, doing due diligence. So I think we're getting there. I feel we're pretty close to our breakthrough. And once we get the first cornerstone and then hopefully the next one and the next one, and we're off to get there. So there are huge, huge advantages to anyone, ourselves or any other mine, to get into production soon. And by soon, I mean in the next 1 to 2 years, because these Western markets are actively seeking non-Chinese produced graphite. And anyone who can deliver that will have a significant advantage. It's not easy getting graphite projects into production for a lot of reasons, and that's why we haven't seen any new projects develop outside of China or China controlled for a long time. But if we can do it, it's going to be a significant step forward, hopefully for the entire graphite market. And we've got the quality of product that they all want. So yeah, we'll obviously keep working hard, and hopefully by the end of next year, we'll be a producer.
Excellent. I'm speaking to you in July 2026. Typically, there's a summer lull, but it doesn't sound, Mike, as though there's going to be any lull or downtime for you and the team at Blencowe.
No, we don't. I mean, we keep going all the time. There's a lot of different companies that are testing our product all the time that we're involved with in offtake discussions. There are some very large and very exciting tenders out there at the moment that we're part of. We're seeking European Union accreditation through their CRMA program. We've got so much going on the offtaker side. Obviously, on the funding side, we've identified various different parties that we're talking to, and we're going to just keep working through all of these and find the way to get it done, because that's what we do. And at the end of the day, that's our job, to build the plan that gets us into production.
Mike Ralston, Chief Executive of Blencowe Resources, thank you very much indeed for joining us in a very busy time.